welcome back to Amber's Adventures. Today we're visiting Boston, Massachusetts, which is the closest town to where I live in the States. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to follow the Freedom Trail, and of course I have travel here, and you'll see my brother as he goes around Boston with us as well. This is my brother Jonathan, who you'll see a lot today. So today we're going to, as we do the Freedom Trail, you'll see this is one of the sites. It's called the Massachusetts State House. And so it's where a lot of legislation happens in Massachusetts. And right where we're standing in right now is called Boston Commons. It's one of the first parks in the United States, and it's the park located in the big park located in Boston. So as I said, we're following the Freedom Trail, and you'll see as we go that there's a line on the ground painted red, and in this area there's a lot of very important historical sites to the American Revolution, which is what the Freedom Trail is known for. So for example, here this church has been sitting there for a long time. I'll give some details in a little bit. But the one thing about this church is it used to be an old granary that's been there since, and the church has been there since before the American Revolution. So normally you can start your tours here in down that way in a building that's basically where they have tours of the Freedom Trail, and specifically in the Boston area. However, right now, due to the situation, the tours are not happening. But make sure to check out if you want to have a tour and hear more about the history from a tour guide to see when they're open and what time the tours are. So, as it says, the first subway, that's Park Street, which is where we came out of to come up into Boston Commons. It's the one of the train stops that are nearby, and it was basically created to help people get around the city of Boston. So this is the red line that I'm talking about. Sometimes there'll be this concrete-looking brick that's put on the sidewalk, and sometimes there'll be this brick line that is actually put inside the sidewalk or inside the road so that you know where you're going. And you'll see that as we go off and on again throughout the entire day. And as long as you follow this trail, you'll be able to get to any of the sites along the along the Freedom Trail location. That's a duck boat. We used commonly during World War II and refurbished into a visiting boat where you can go on the Charles River, which is the river that runs through Boston, and you get to see some of Boston as you do. Now we come to the Granary Burying Ground. So the Granary Burying Ground is famous because a lot of the people from the American Revolution who participated, as they passed away, they were buried here. So as you saw, Paul Revere is buried here, Benjamin Franklin's parents, several members, 2 or 3 members who signed the Constitution are buried here. So it's a very famous burying ground. And we'll go in and check it out. And as you can see, for the Boston Massacre, we also have a memorial and bury a plaque dedicated to the people who died during the Boston Massacre. So, as I said, the Park Street Church, which is the church here, it used to be a granary, which is why this is called the Burial Granary Grounds, is because of that. So we continue to honor the name even though the granary is gone and it's now replaced by the church. So here's one of the first famous people buried here. His name's James Otis. He was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, which is why he is honored and remembered. So the obelisk there in the center is the location where Benjamin Franklin's parents are buried. And as you can see, many of these names are weathered away from time, but we have records of who was buried here, so if you're really interested, you can find that out. Yeah, this is John Hancock. He's famously known, you know, put your John Hancock on it, means to sign it, relating back to John Hancock, who was one of the first people to sign the Declaration of Independence. Back here is famous because it's where some Huguenots, some women, and some of the famous Tories were buried. And it's really, as you can see, the city has kept the grounds, but built as close up with the buildings next to it as possible, giving you a view inside. And I think that's really smart to, you know, use the space, but still preserve the history. And here's where the tomb of Paul Revere is. This is where Paul Revere, who's famous for his Midnight Ride, is buried. And we'll go to the church that's known for it a little bit later today. And somewhere here, I think Samuel Adams is buried, but I think it's over there where the tour group is, and I'm not going to go be part of the tour group because I don't want them to accidentally think I'm part of it and wonder why I'm taking so long. So this mount here is very famous. It's a mound dedicated to honor all the children who have lost and been buried here. So they were trying to figure out what to do, and they created this because during the colonial period, as we all know, there was a high mortality rate for infants and children, so they were less likely to have their own gravestone. So this is basically more or less the burial ground. This is more or less the burial ground for this area. There's one more on the trail, and it's in the north end. We won't go by it, but if you're interested in checking it out, you're more than welcome to follow the trail and check it out on your own when you come to Boston. So as I said, as you can sort of see through the tour group, here is the grave of Samuel Adams, and right next to it is the memorial to the Boston Massacre. And this is the Tremont Temple. It's kind of famous somewhere around the ways. It used to be a hotel, and there's somebody famous who stayed here. I don't know the whole history, but if you're interested, you can look it up. One of the cool, unique things about Boston is there's a lot of universities around. So here you go, Suffolk University. As you can see, Suffolk University sign here. Just showing you how much the city has all this educational areas in it. And as you can see, we're following the brick road, or the Freedom Trail. So across the way, that is King's Chapel, another church from the Revolutionary period, along with another burial ground. The chapel sits on the original foundation. However, none of the what you see here is from the original foundation. We know the foundation stones themselves are original, but everything up, I believe, has been replaced. And as you can see, that hotel here is another one of those that has a famous story. It has a famous story, but I'm not 100% sure what it is, so if you're interested, you can look it up. And there's another duck boat. If you're around Boston and you see them, you can just quack at them and they'll quack back. Maybe not so much right now, but... As you can see, there's different places you can go and buy souvenirs. I'm going to take you to one of my favorites later, but there's one.
Old City Hall.
So this is where Old City Hall used to be. And before that, it was the original Boston Latin. As you can see from this stone here on the ground. Let me make sure it's a good... As you can see from the stone here on the ground, it's to remember that it used to be the old Latin school here in Boston. And from the statue you can see it's Benjamin Franklin. And the reason for the statue is because Benjamin Franklin, along with 5 other members of the signer of Declaration of Independence, went to this Latin school. Of them, only Benjamin Franklin was the only... Of them, Benjamin Franklin was the only one who graduated. So of the Benjamin Franklin and the 5 signers of the Declaration of Independence who went to the Latin school in Boston, only Benjamin Franklin graduated. And so a little bit of history about Latin school. It's the oldest public school in Boston for boys, because at the time girls weren't educated publicly. Here of the donkey is to represent the fact that afterwards it became the old state house, the state house. The new one, or the one that is the state house now, is the one I showed you earlier with the big golden roof. So here's the Old South Meeting House. It's one of the locations where they had a lot of the discussion about what to do about the different taxes that are being imposed on the colonies. As you can see, it's currently closed, and that's due to the pandemic, but as the country opens back up, as sites start to open back up, you'll be able to visit. So make sure to check that out as you're coming. Unfortunately, it means I can't go inside and show you around, but it's a really cool location if you want to see where some of these discussions about the revolutionary ideas took place. So the memorial here is dedicated to remembering the Irish potato famine. So you can see the despair on the people's faces. Our last look at the old meeting house, and then we're going to head down to the next location. Basically, as I said, if you follow the line, you won't be lost.
Mostly keeps up with it.
The only reason the line doesn't really even continue on that side. The only reason they technically want to go back up. The line continues on that side of the street, but we're going to walk on this side of the street just because we're on this side right now. We'll cross over in a little bit. Here we come up onto the old State House. Now underneath is converted into a train stop, so you can come up the train stop, you come out in the middle of the building. And during normal times, sometimes you could go up into it and see what it looks like. And as I said, right now a lot of things are closed, so it's actually closed. So before I continue, we're here at the State House. One of the things I want to mention, so we started at Park Street and the Boston Commons, but one of the other places you can start is the official considered end of the tour. The line is Bunker Hill. So if you have a car or you're taking a taxi, you want, or you have some way to get over there to start, that's one end. Whereas the Boston Commons, as you saw, there's so many things around it that's almost like a circle rather than starting or ending spot. So it's just something cool to know. And here,
Sit too long or I'll grow moss.
oh, grow moss.
Yeah, I'll grow moss.
As you can see, sometimes on the ground you'll see these the Boston Freedom Trail, which will help you know that you're on the right trail as well. And this is a sort of map of where all the trail is. So we started here in the Boston Commons. I showed you the State House. We went by the Park Street and the Granary Building. We went by the chapel and the public school. I didn't mention we did go by the corner bookstore. We saw the outside of the meeting house, and now we're up to the old State House. We're going to visit the Boston Massacre site, Faneuil Hall, up to Paul Revere's house, over to Old North Church, and if we have time I want to try and take you guys to the Constitution today. And so it gives you an idea of what it looks like on a map. So as you see here, we're at the site where the Boston Massacre took place. And if you see in the picture, it looks much more like a wharf and looks close to the water and everything. And that's because all these buildings you see here used to be a dock, and in order to expand the town and create more land to build on, they filled it in and extended the space so that the land was larger. And the harbor is down there, if you can see. And there's a little the U.S. flag marking the harbor. Another fun tidbit about all the duck boats, each one of them has a different name. So you'll see each one written on the side, different names to go with it. And actually, the State House is actually currently closed, not because of the pandemic, but because they've been doing restoration work to bring it back up and make sure to preserve it. And at the top you can see there's a lion, a gold lion, and a silver unicorn, sort of representing the fact that it used to be British. So yeah, as you can see right in front of there, it would have been the Boston Massacre. The docks would have been here, and the warehouses for the docks and the ships, and of course all these buildings, they would have been either the docks or it would have been underwater. It would have been water that the city of Boston landfilled in order to create more land. They've also put up these really cool signs to help you know that you're going the right way to try and get to whatever building you're trying to get to. Here's Faneuil Hall. It was also a meeting place to come and discuss the views about all the taxes and what was going on with the situation between Boston, the colonies, and the British monarch. And this would have been one of the final tipping points would have been where they made their final decision about the Boston Tea Party. We didn't go by the Boston Tea Party. It's not marked on as a site to go visit nowadays, It's located, if you want to go check it out, it's located over by the Children's Museum in Boston. But it's really the only thing over there, which is part of the reason why people don't really go by it anymore. If you continue this way, you'll see several glass structures up. They're a memorial to the Holocaust victims, to help remember all those who were lost during that time. And here comes another duck boat. As you can see, it's painted with a flag on the side. And of course, some of these duck boats have little paintings on them to help us to help identify them quicker and better. So this is a statue for Samuel Adams, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And we went by his grave earlier up in the Granary Burial Grounds. So one of the special things about Sam Adams is he is from Boston, Massachusetts. So he was born not too far from here in a town called Quincy. And his house is located there. So if you have the time to go out to Quincy to see the house, that's where it's located, and it's preserved. So you can sort of see it in the state that it would have been during the colonial period. So here on the other side of Faneuil Hall, you come up to the North Market, Quincy Market, and South Market. Now, North and South Market have been renovated into shopping areas. Quincy Market is a little bit of shopping on the outside, and as you'll see as we walk through the inside, it's food. And as you can see, Faneuil Hall, usually you can go inside and visit, and they have some retail shops, and you can go up into the hall itself, but it is currently closed. And when you're visiting, make sure to just check the hours if you're interested in checking out the upstairs, the museum and whatnot. One of the great things about Quincy Market is you have this space here where there's tables set up that as you go through, as you saw in the market, you can get your food at different places. So if one person wants pizza, another person wants a lobster roll, you guys can get the food you want and then come in this area and eat your food together. So it's a unique experience for grabbing food and being able to have something for everybody. So all here there used to be a elevated highway through downtown Boston, and in the late 1990s, early 2000s, they dug up this area and instead put in, as you can see, an underground highway instead. So these cars are all coming up from the expressway underneath Boston, and that is basically a monument to remember the old expressway that used to be here. And what they did with the space in the center is they made it into this park in the middle to help create green space inside Boston. So if you go down this see the aquarium and the wharf, which is also called Long Wharf. And we're going to continue this way into the north end. So something quick about the north end. Behind me is part of the north end, and we're going to continue down into the main part of the north end. The north end is sort of it's Little Italy. It's where a lot of immigrants, when they came to the United States from Italy, ended up settling in Boston, and it retains that history and culture today. So you'll see lots of influence in the foods provided there, and we'll get to see some more as we're going around. But I just wanted to give you a little heads up about it. You see they've tried to retain a lot of the old characteristics of Boston and preserve them. So I know it looks like we've lost the Freedom Trail. Basically we came out the other end of Quincy onto the Greenway instead of going back through Quincy to Faneuil Hall to repick up the Freedom Trail. However, being from around Boston with Google Maps, we're able to quickly find our way back to sort of the Freedom Trail area. And that's what we're doing now, is walking back sort of to where the Freedom Trail is in order to pick it back up and go see the next historical site. So you sort of would pick up the trail down there is Faneuil Hall. You sort of pick up that and sort of come out over this area. We're going to go down into a street before where it picks back up to go by the house Paul Revere lived in. Pretty cool, they have a little bug house.
Huh?
It's a little bug house. I've seen them all over Germany, so it's kind of cool. And so this is a lot what you'll see typical architecture here of the north end, and down there is the underground expressway, where one of the places it connects up. And just like that, we found the trail again. It basically connects with the street next door, rather than the street we came down. But there you go. One of the things I've loved is that they've created these outdoor patio spaces. So you can have lunches outside and enjoy the weather. So here is the house of Paul Revere. It's where he was born, and where he lived during at the time of the American Revolution. You can always get tickets to go inside. I'm not going to go inside today, but you can do that. They're open most days of the week, but I would double check. And the ticket prices are about $10, I think, per person. So it's just really cool if you want to see what the house looked like in the interior. There's lots of cool places to get lunch around here, depending on what you're looking for. Also, depending on what time of year you're here or what's going on, sometimes they have festivals, sort of like you would see in Europe, festivals to saints and stuff. So you never know what you're going to check out or see while you're here. So it's kind of cool to wander the streets if you have time as well. This is a cool place to get lunch if you want to, but it's also kind of pricey. So across the street you see there's a place called Mike's Pastry. It's a really famous place if you want to go get cannolis, and they're really good. Usually there's a line, so you're going to have to wait in line to get them. and I've waited for like half an hour before. So you definitely need to be prepared to wait in line for that. And next to it is a Cafe Victoria. It's a really great place to get coffee and dessert. And we're going to stop there for a little bit and grab a coffee and dessert as well. If you continue down this way, there's a place where you can buy coffee beans, and you can also get them ground there, I think. I know you can buy the coffee beans there, and it's really great coffee. So if you're a coffee lover and you want to take some coffee home with you, that's a really great place to down this way to go. It's called Picardi's. So, and it looks like a sort of old drugstore style. And as you can see, they do more than just cannolis. They have lots of typical desserts, but it's really, yeah, it's a really good place. Cannolis, lots of choices. I mean, as is typical with a lot of Italian, a lot of Catholic culture. And there's lots of saints in the Catholic culture.
I don't know how people keep track of all the saints.
There's a saint today.
Saint today?
Yeah, sometimes two.
Her grandmother and her mother.
It's why in the Catholic culture, you often celebrate a birthday and a saint's name day. Especially if you're named after a saint.
Really, really fun.
No.
Can you believe that? They're so cute.
So birthday is celebrated where you have like a birthday, like the actual birthday, typical birthday party style. And Saint's Day is usually you have a special dessert on that day, and maybe a gift or two. But the gifts are small compared to like the birthday stuff. So here we have a statue to Paul Revere, and behind you have Old North Church. Old North Church is famous because they put lanterns up there. The saying, "One if by land, two if by sea." This is where the lanterns were put to tell us where and how the redcoats, the Royal Army, was proceeding through Boston to Concord and Lexington. So they put one in the thing if they were proceeding by land, or two if they were proceeding by sea up the river into Concord and Lexington. And it ended up being one because I think it was one, because they proceeded up the Minuteman Trail. They walked. Well, we'll have to double check. My brother says it was probably two, and I think it's one. We'll double check. And they proceeded up what was called the Minuteman Trail, which is a different trail from here, to Lexington and Concord. And so now we are at, in the background, Old North Church, which is famous for this. So it wasn't just Paul Revere who rode out. There were three other riders. Paul Revere actually got caught, so he didn't successfully do the ride, but he's the most notorious, and so we remember him most for it. Despite the fact that he did not successfully finish his ride, the others did, and so therefore it was a successful warning, giving the colonial troops time to get together and to repel the redcoats. So we're going to go up to Old North Church and check that out. So as you saw, although some of the buildings are newer, they butt up to the courtyard, same as at the burial grounds we saw earlier. But they do have some colonial buildings remaining to help preserve the history. And of course, I highly suggest getting tickets to go inside.
I think everyone.
I think it's one.
It's 2. I don't know, I guess it maybe is 1. I don't know. I don't quite remember my American Revolution.
I don't remember American Revolution very well. That was not my, it's not my focus.
It's not my focus of studying history. Wrong geographical location.
Yeah, my focus is medieval history. So the trail continues up this way, past another burial ground that focuses on craftsmen, artisan, and people of importance who lived in the North End during the Revolution. We are going to actually go and take a bus, which is down at the main road. So that way. My focus was
My area of study
medieval history in Europe.
is business, not history. I only needed American Revolution to pass like high school.
Yeah, I haven't studied the American Revolution since high school. It's totally walkable to get to the Constitution. It's about a half an hour walk from where we are at. We're going to take the bus just because it's a little bit quicker. And we are on a deadline today of time. So getting around Boston, there's several ways to get around. You can take taxis. If you have a car, you can find parking. Sometimes it's hard to find parking. But if you're taking public transportation, you might want to get a Charlie card. The Charlie card is a renewable, reusable card that you can use to visit Boston, and basically you can use it on any of the subways, any of the subway lines. You could use it on most of the bus lines. You can use it on the ferry we're using to get You can use it on the ferry we're going to use to get from the Constitution, which is where we're going next, to the aquarium, which is sort of situated near downtown Boston. And it's near where we were earlier today. I know that for the Charlie card, I'm pretty sure it's not refundable. So if you get it, you can use it as a cool souvenir, but you won't get your money back if you try to turn it in. So it's great if you're here for multiple days, not so much if you're only here for one day. I think you might be able to buy a day pass, but you'd have to look online. My biggest suggestion is get the Charlie card, especially if you're spending more than a day or two here. So that's something cool you can get. So to get to the Boston Constitution from Old North Church, you can pass the cemetery that we skipped and follow the red line. It takes about 30 minutes. Or you can come back to the main street and you can get the bus. And I suggest that if you're pressed for time, to take the bus and to check for the bus schedule and location, which means that you probably want to make sure you have a phone that has Google Maps available.
Route 93. Stop requested.
This will be the one we want.
This is the one we want.
5th Street.
So as we head down there, here, this is where the USS Constitution is. Her nickname is Old Ironsides because during the 1812 war, despite the number of cannonballs she took, she did not break. Which for a ship was actually, at that time, was actually pretty good. And that's because of the type of wood they used to make her. Another fun fact about the USS Constitution, it's the oldest ship in the US Navy still active. So it's really cool, the amount of history and the fact that it's such an old ship and still an active ship. Sorry, this is the wharf. You can take the ferry from down this way over to the Long Wharf. We saw on the bus on our way over the monument. That's Bunker Hill Monument, which is actually remembered improperly. It should be Breeds Hill Monument. Breeds Hill is where the actual battle took place. However, at the time it was mismarked or mislabeled, and so they thought they were fighting on Bunker Hill, and it just kept. The name just kept, and that's how we remember it. So that monument, you can go up and you can actually climb up to the top of it. Looks a lot like the Washington Monument. However,
Smaller.
it's shorter, so you don't have as many stairs. And nearby there's also a museum that talks about it. We will not be going over there today because
Not enough time.
not enough time, and we have already fit a lot in. But we will be seeing the Constitution if they are open, because it's something really cool to see. It is, yes, this is an active naval base. There is, so besides the USS Constitution, there is also the USS Cason Young, which is a World War II destroyer. I think it's a World War II destroyer. It's been docked here for many years. It's still, I think, active, but often in dock. These two buildings here, they converted into a museum. It used to be just you could only come over here to see the ship, and now they have a museum explaining some of the history of the USS Constitution. So it talks about why she has her nickname, all the active naval battles she's in, and all that. And as you can see, there used to be a train line that ran through here. And then, so rather than picking the line up, we just left it and covered it to make it usable space. It looks like they just fired her cannons, John. There's smoke going off. And that is the USS Constitution, or Old Ironsides. She used to be here while they were doing restoration work in dry dock. They had finished the restoration work. They typically only take her out once a year.
I think so.
Take her off the tip of the Cape of Massachusetts and bring her back, and that's usually on July 4th. And they'll fire her cannons, and if you go to Battleship Cove, you have a really great view of her. And that is the USS Cason. And it too spends a lot of its time here. And I think for tickets we have to go inside. Or it's over there. I'll double check.
Doesn't matter.
Sometimes they have reenactment here. They don't have it right now. Usually closer to July 4th. And they'll do some reenactment stuff, specifically focused around the colonial period. Often you need a passport or a real ID if you're from the United States to enter into the sites. So make sure that you have that with you.
That's because it's still an active naval base.
Because it's on an active naval base, and it's an active naval ship. Yeah, she was in dry dock for like 3 years, 5 years, something like that. Because the line used to be here, and it was notoriously long and it was very crowded in this space. Tours right now, which is kind of sad, but it's great that they took her out and ran her.
I think they did. I'm not sure. I don't see.
The flags are all put away.
She's at parade, I think, which means I don't think they've taken her out.
Parade is, well, July 4th is only 2 weeks away.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about the ship is currently dressed for parade, not for.
Yeah, no, she's just dressed to go out and come back. Not actual active.
No, she's not dressed to go out. They wouldn't have all those flags if she was dressed to go out.
They do on July 4th.
Yeah, but that's not July 4th.
So maybe they, I don't know.
She's currently she's not currently rigged for sailing.
No.
Because you wouldn't have that up and over rig for sale.
It might have tugged her up, tugged her out, tugged her back.
Maybe.
USS Constitution salutes frontline heroes with ride around Boston Harbor today. That's what's going on. That's great. Which is why she's not set up for
Yeah, they probably
visit.
pulled her off the tug. Yeah.
And the next time they'll take her out is July 4th. They'll take her down to the Cape and back. I think she's on tug for that too. But I thought she had sail. She had the parade up in the sails, so I don't know.
Maybe.
I think they can only do half when they're on parade.
Maybe.
But I don't know anything about sailboats. So we're heading now over to the water shuttle. Take the shuttle across back to Long Wharf, which is by the aquarium. And it's down where you see the little tents down there. All the way down there. If you have time there from Long Wharf, you can take boats. You can take shuttles, basically.
You can go out whale watching.
Out to whale watch. You can take shuttles out to the Boston Harbor Islands. There are several islands where you can go and explore for the day. And if you're doing the Boston Harbor Islands, typically you buy a ticket and it's like round trip, and it's good for the day, hop on, hop off style. At least I think that is what it does. It's been a while since we've done it. So these tracks here were used for the dock, and it's used by a lot of those big machinery cranes like that. And so over by where the Constitution is now is where the water taxi or the water shuttle used to be. Now that the Constitution is back out of dry dock, they moved it over here to its new permanent location. You can see a little bit of the Boston Harbor skyline. So over there is where we came across on the bridge. And you see in the distance there's TD Garden. It's where the Boston Bruins play. They're the hockey team, and it's where the I think it's where the Celtics play, and they're the basketball team. But I won't swear to it because there's been talk of moving them, so I'm not 100% sure if they're still there. trying to do any of the harbor cruises, you come down by the aquarium. If you're trying to get to Boston Harbor Islands, you come down by the aquarium. The whale watch is down by the aquarium. And the duck boats and a lot of the tour buses also meet down at the aquarium. So it's a great place to go if you want to try and catch one of the tour buses or do something on the water. Down there's a carousel that they run during the summer. Down there, it's a carousel they run during the summer that you can get a ride on. It's really cool, and they use a lot of the, it reminds me of the older carousels, so it's not bad to check out. It's not a bad little thing to check out, especially if you're, the weather is nice. And they also, I think, sell ice cream down there, so if you want looking for a sweet treat on a hot day, it's a great place to go as well. So if you go down this way, you get back to the Quincy Market area and where we were earlier today. The Black Rose here is not bad for like if you want to like get a pint of ale. A very Irish thing to do. And there's the old State House from this morning, so. So normally that over there, it's called the Frog Pond. Normally during the summer, they fill it up with water and it's a wade pool. And during the winter, they freeze it over and make it an ice rink. So depending what time you're here, it's a good idea to stop over and check out the Frog Pond and see if they have any water and you can wade through. Or if it's winter, if they made it into an ice rink, it's a great place to skate around the rink for a little bit, and they have lots of cool stuff. So this is Boston Public Gardens, which is separate from the Boston Commons. And there's some distinct differences. This is more like a flower garden, whereas that's more like a sort of open park. And they do a lot to maintain the beds and the trees here. The other thing is, as we come up, you'll see all these kids are on. They're called duck. It's the statues of ducks and mother duck and ducklings.
Nora, ready?
So that's it's related to a story called Make Way for Ducklings, which is based here in Boston, Massachusetts. It's a children's story about some ducks who were living at the Charles River, and they made their way through town to come live here in the public garden. And now we have what's called the duck pond, with an island dedicated as a home for the ducks during their summer months. The boats there that are on the pond, the duck pond, are called swan boats, and you can get a ticket and ride around the swan boat. And they're pedaled by people. They're pedaled by the people who operate it, and they bring you out around Duck Island, which is here in the middle, and under the bridge and back to the entrance, or where the boathouse for the duck pond, or for the swan boats. And as you can see, there's several ducks around here, and so people just come and hang out, and basically just hang out and enjoy the nature. You can take the main bridge over there, and just on the left side of it, down by this area, by the pond, is the boathouse for the swan boats. So it's a really cool experience if you got the time to check it out. I suggest you do. This is Boston Commonwealth Park. Basically, it's a park that just runs all the way down until the street meets up at the other end. This is Newbury Street, one of the more expensive places to shop in Boston. It's famous for being high-end shopping. As you can see, there's a lot of like Tiffany & Co., Chanel, Burberry. So there's a lot of high-end, what I consider high-end shops on this street, especially at this end. If you get down towards Massachusetts Ave, they're a little bit more like Zara or H&M. So as you go up and down the street, you have that. There's also several places to eat along the street, so it's not just shopping. But it's a great place if you're interested in buying something, buying some clothes, or stopping outside, or enjoying the different architectures in the area. This is Georgetown Cupcakes. They make fresh cupcakes every day. Basically, when they're sold out, they're sold out. And they're some of the best cupcakes I've had. So it's not a bad idea if you come by Newberry Street to get a cupcake on as you make your way down the street. So now we're on Boylston Street, and here in this park area during this, I don't know what, I guess it's every Friday, they have a farmer's market, so you can come down and get some local fresh, local to Massachusetts, local to surrounding area goods. So this here is Copley Square, named after John Singleton Copley. He's famous for art, portrait painting, and he was a member of the Royal Academy. And across the way here is the Boston Public Library. The Boston Library is America's first public library. I think it's the oldest public library, and I think it's America's first public library. If you happen to go in up onto the second floor and look out onto Boylston Street, which is the street we're walking down, we're going to go by what's called the finish line of the Boston Marathon. If you go up that street, you'll see Back Bay, which is just Back Bay is well known for the trains that come in. So if you're taking what we call the Purple Line, which is the commuter rail, depending on which way you're coming in, that's one of the ways you go in. So here is the finish line for the Boston Marathon. The Boston Marathon starts out by Hopkinton, and you run the race into crossing this line here, and so that's where this is. And except during the marathon, when it's all blocked off, more or less you can't really walk on it or cross it. The only other time is during New Year's, when they block the street and you can walk down Boylston Street. And if you remember the Boston Marathon bombing, that was in this area right here, where the Sweet Green and the Be Good and the Cava and all the way. So that's where that was. And this is the memorial to remember all those who were injured and anybody who died from the Boston bombing, or the Boston Marathon bombing. And here's the main entrance to the Boston Public Library. And if you want to get a better view, you can go up to that second floor and look down. The Solas here is a good Irish pub, and they serve typical Irish food. And so if you're in this area, it's not a bad place to grab lunch or dinner. And Boylston Street is just one street over from Newberry, so we're running parallel to Newberry here. Center on the 30-something, 34th floor, up near the top. There's a view deck where you can see you can walk around and see a 360 of Boston. It's not a bad place for shopping and to get some food. The other thing about it is this is also where the Heinz Convention Center is located. So sometimes they have conventions here.